Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golick look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Good Tuesday, everybody. Glad you are with us. Welcome into Golick and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo, Mike Golick Jr. That was Chief Keef with I Don't Like, so I've been told.
No, it's on your workout.
Absolutely.
I thought that one came straight.
There we go.
Oh.
Wow. Strong start.
Unbelievable.
Horrible.
I saw someone, I finally heard someone use it on one of you guys the other day, though, so I at least know that the system's got some merit now.
But thanks for bringing it back to the mean.
Good job.
We appreciate that.
No, I try. I was taking the heat off of you for having absolutely no idea who Chief Keef was, because I knew that wasn't going to be a conversation.
That was a huge part of it. Look, it makes sense that Cliff the Musical Wizard will put that in, because apparently nobody's getting along right now.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting along right now.
That's exactly right.
We got Jason Kidd fired in Milwaukee. Apparently, everything's Kevin Love's fault in Cleveland, and nobody can get along between Kawhi Leonard and his people in the Spurs.
Oh, it's going everywhere. Kemba Walker
makes all the sense in the world.
Bummed out he may get traded in Charlotte. You got Damian Lillard meeting with the owner in Portland saying, what the hell's going on here? There's a whole lot of that going on right now, but nothing like a team meeting that we're going to get to when everybody zeroes in on you like they did on Kevin Love. Holy smokes.
Yeah, that one escalated pretty quickly for Kevin. Just after I sat here with you guys the other day and said I was so proud of the Cavaliers for avoiding the easy temptation of blaming Kevin Love for everything that's gone on.
And there they go.
Of course, they turned right around and
got in that meeting. Everybody started looking around and decided, it's you, Kevin.
Yeah.
It's you.
It seems like it happens every year with him, right? I mean, he seems like a likable guy. I mean, he seems,
my gosh.
right?
LeBron went to UCLA and was working out with them all summer, putting it on Instagram, and now it's just right under the bus.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It just always seems to go back to him for some reason. So we'll get into that.
Yeah,
Look,
we will.
We got a lot of great guests coming up today at
7:30.
Ed Rendell, former governor of Pennsylvania and mayor of Philadelphia, will join us. Massive Eagles fan.
Huge.
Huge Philadelphia sports fan. And he actually does some analysis, believe it or not.
Yes, he does.
He'll be with us. Adrian Wojnarowski, our fine ESPN NBA insider, the host of Who's Bitter Now, I believe is the name of his new show.
How about it?
He'll join us to talk about what the heck's going on. And by the way, the team that has to be loving all of this is Golden State. Y'all just figure it out. We're good. We're just going to go through our little motions here. You guys have your little squabbles. We'll see you in May. You know?
They get 82 live practices while everyone else fights amongst themselves.
Yeah. Just crazy.
We'll see in the finals, whoever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You figure it out amongst yourselves who you want to meet in the West with us and who you want to bring over from that other conference, and we'll take care of it.
You know what? The NBA Finals is essentially going to be like that last kick in the Minnesota Saints game where they have to trot someone out on the defensive side just to execute the play so that they can ultimately hand them the win at the end of this.
Yeah. That sounds about right. And hopefully Thomas Morstead will not be playing nose tackle again like he was on that extra point. Keyshawn Johnson will join us at 8:30. And Adnan Virk will join us. Adnan obviously very excited about something non-sports related.
Yes.
The Academy Award nominations are coming out.
Well,
it's award season.
It's exactly right. It's award season. It's the most, self-congratulatory group out there that likes to pat themselves on the back and take care of all the social issues in the world as well. So it's their season. It's their time to shine.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. All right. How do you really feel?
If I got to read one more time about what some celebrity thinks about something going on in the world, why do I care? In all honesty, why do I care?
Well, let me ask you a question.
Really?
That's on the material. That's on the material you choose to read.
Yeah. Well, that is true.
Exactly.
You go down that road.
Yeah, I'd say you're the one picking up the Inquirer off every rack.
Somebody has to keep the rag magazines in business, and that's what I do.
Yeah, but then you can't complain about it.
Sure I can.
No,
exactly.
You can't support it and then this is terrible, I'll take 4 of those.
No, give me more of the terribles so I can mock it.
That's one of those things. Best relationship advice I ever got was if you go looking for trouble, you might find it. You go courting trouble and then complain when it's there.
That's the thing about those magazines is you read about the train wrecks of some of the lives and you feel better about yourself. yourself.
Okay.
That's the beauty
Certainly
of
one
it.
way to go.
Yeah.
You know what? We're now blaming you for all this.
Yeah.
We're all
but I
blaming
certainly
you.
can't wait for another celebrity's take on the world crises out there. I think
Okay.
that's just fantastic.
All right. Let's steer this ship back on control, okay?
Yikes.
We are on ESPN Radio and ESPN News right now as there's a great quarterfinal match going on in the Australian Open between Rafa Nadal, the number one seed, and Marin Cilic, a finalist at Wimbledon a year ago. And when the Australian Open coverage is done on ESPN2, we will be back with them on the TV side. So we've decided that everything is Mike's fault. And
yes, it is.
we got a lot of bitterness in the NBA. So let's get through the rest of it with the start of the show.
It's time for Off the Top
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
with Golic and Wingo.
And we start in the NBA with non-bitterness related news, I guess, instead
Yeah.
of just actual production.
Good play.
DeMarcus Cousins had 44 points, 24 boards, and 10 assists as the Pelicans rallied from 17 down with 5 minutes to go to beat the Bulls in double overtime.
See, here's the beauty again of a list. He's the fifth different player to do it, and the first since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1972. So you have Elgin Baylor did it once. Oscar Robertson did it once. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did it once. DeMarcus Cousins now did it once. And then there's Will Chamberlain.
Always by himself.
He did it 6 times. I mean, the dude, it's ridiculous. That's the most fun of
Yes.
these things. Listen, a great performance by Boogie there. But, I mean, it just then brings you back to just how dominant Will Chamberlain was. But you sit there and look at the Pelicans. What are they sitting in the 6th slot right now? Because you keep wondering, when is that team going to, is these 2 big guys going to do something for them? Will they build around them? Or are these 2 pieces that are going to end up on somebody else's team between him and Anthony Davis at some point?
And, listen, this kind of production comes when AD's not playing last night, so you get to be the only show in town. My thing about this list is it hasn't happened for what? This is the first time in 46 years? I mean, the last time was in 72, so think about the offensive forces that we've had come through this league, bigs and otherwise. I mean, a guy like Shaq, all the guys along the way, some of the most dominant forces in the NBA, and this is the first time it's happened since then. That is one of those where the list is actually more impressive, I think, than just the sum of its parts.
That's a really good point, especially the big guys. You start listing off the big guys that played between 72 and now, and it's an impressive amount before that position kind of went away to what it was to what it is now. And for it not to happen in that long, that is pretty impressive by Cousins.
But again, going back to your point about Wilt, the stat last week, we talked about another Pelican, Anthony Davis, who had back-to-back, I think it was 40 and 15 games on the road, 40-plus points, 15 boards. Everyone else did it, and Wilt did it 11 times.
Oh, yeah. It's ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
He always, and I mean always, stands alone.
Off the Top.
More NBA news. The Bucks said goodbye to Jason Kidd, firing their head coach Monday prior to the team's win against the Suns. Kidd, who was in his 4th season, rarely had his major pieces available at the same time, which include, obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jabari Parker, and Chris Middleton.
Yep, they had not played 1 minute together over the last 2 seasons. Those 3 have not played 1 minute together over the last 2 seasons. And in the 646 minutes the Bucks have played this season without the Greek Freak, they basically have been last in just about everything offensively and defensively as well. So, but it wasn't the longest tenure in the world, but it brings up that question that we talk about a lot over the years on the show about great players. Can they make great coaches? And the list is very, very, very short.
Well, and players like him and Derek Fisher that did it immediately after their playing careers. And it's one of these things that we see this all the time in football. What will teams do? They'll try things out early in the game, whether it's a play or a blitz, and if it works early, they'll keep going with it. We saw young head coach and Sean McVay succeed in a way that might merit more of those in the NFL. You wonder how this affects that chance going forward of them taking chances on more players coming right out of their career as successful NBA head coaches. It's very interesting. There's a lot of this that's actually interesting.
You sit there and talk about great players, all-time great players that really don't go into coaching because they want to be GMs or maybe owners. Maybe they don't want to go into coaching because they're rarely successful.
That's very true.
I mean,
Larry Bird is the one that comes to mind.
He's the last one in the NBA who we think of between Jason Kidd and now of one of the great players and success in the league. It was certainly Larry Bird. And Larry Bird stopped because part of it was he couldn't deal with the fact that these guys couldn't do what he wanted them to do.
Well, I think that was what you always talked about with Reggie White, where guys are so great that they have this disconnect between trying to explain and help parlay that greatness into other people who just can't do it.
We did. One time at practice, our D-line coach, Dale Hopp, said, Reggie, why don't you teach that rip and hump move that you use to the rest of your D-linemen, the rest of your buddies here? And he tried to do it and started talking his way through it, and at one point said, I have no idea how to teach it. I just do it. Yeah. So, and you do it well.
Yeah. By the way, and good for you.
Yeah, that's exactly
Not
right.
so good for us trying to learn.
Really.
But that's across every sport. You look at a lot of successful coaches in the NFL. They're not great players. John Gruden's famous line was he hated the fact that as a player, he called himself just a ham and egger. He wasn't any good.
Well, you understand for a lot of those guys, they have to do the whole. They have to understand their position, others' positions, the positions they're going against. They need to do everything because they're not just a good enough athlete to just line up and just destroy somebody. They have to know all that's going on, and that can translate over into coaching as well.
They have to find a different way to get it done and teach those things to everybody else on their roster. By the way, more on this Jason Kidd story coming up we'll discuss later because Giannis Antetokounmpo apparently called him and said, hey, you're getting fired.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? And now it becomes, okay, if they fired someone that obviously Giannis, their best player, loved, what's going to be the disconnect going? I know he signed that mega extension, but then that puts into play, okay, how do we keep players? How do we bring players here? I mean, it's going to be interesting for the Bucks going forward.
Off the top.
Moving on to college basketball. Trae Young and number 12 Oklahoma host number 5 Kansas at 7 Eastern on ESPN. Young, who's coming off a Big 12 record type 48 points Saturday, leads Division I with 30.5 points and 9.7 assists per game.
Yeah, both of which would lead, as you mentioned, Division I. No players ever finished the season leading Division I in both those categories since assists became an official stat in 83-84. Right now, Kansas 6-1 in the conference. Oklahoma 5-3. Oklahoma is 9-0 at home, but Kansas is 7-0 away from home. So something's got to give, as they say. This kid's fun to watch, bottom line.
He is, and it's interesting now that the conversation has shifted not really to, all right, us talking about how great he is or us even talking about his faults, but the discussion of how to discuss him and him coming out and saying, I think people forget I'm only 19 years old, gets us into this interesting category of how are we supposed to judge these guys? Because traditionally, especially in basketball, where we saw guys his age turn pro for a long time, guys that were used to in the one and done having their eyes on this, judging them like men when they are in fact kids who in some cases might still be sculpting their game.
The only problem on that side is history goes against him because 19-year-olds are going into the NBA every year and having success. So when that happens, then it's put on that age of, okay, guys are doing it at this age, so we're kind of expecting it now. Maybe it isn't the fairest thing in the world, but you're seeing example after example of 19-year-olds being successful at the highest level.
And now is it going to make people look at him as lesser because he's highlighted this, because he said, listen, guys, I'm still young and trying to figure this out. Does that become, for some people, he's not ready to take on what's coming next?
Well, look, I think the bottom line here is that not every 19-year-old is the same. I mean, I think it's very refreshing for Trae Young to say this because we look, whether we're fans somewhere or all of us in the media, whether on television, radio, however you want to do it, we look at them when we look at these players as widgets. We look at them as a product sometime and not a person, and I think all of us can go back to when we were 19. Hey, we didn't have it all together. Yeah. Okay, let's be clear about that. The ones that do, they're the outliers. They're the ones that are on the outside of the spectrum that are held to a different standard because how are you doing this? How are you putting this all together? And when we do the NFL draft, people just say, "Oh, he's a plug. This is a product I'm going to plug in and put here." No, it's a person with real actual stuff that goes on in their lives. And that's okay.
Didn't you hear, Trey? It's a farm system.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that.
Yes, it is a farm system.
Maybe that might have been the most honest thing anyone's ever said, and I'm not sure a lot of people that are running said farm system are really happy that he said it.
By the way, is anyone shocked that Trey is defending another Trey? This just seems like one of those brotherhood type deals.
Jump to his defense rather quickly.
It is not Trey Wayne's fault that the Vikings secondary was just torched. I want to be clear about that.
Here we go.
I'm just saying, let a 19-year-old sometimes be a 19-year-old. It's not the worst thing in the world.
Novel concept.
There you exactly. What appreciation for something besides the uniform that he plays in. It's crazy. All right, that was off the top. And now we get into something that is going to be talked about a lot. We'll have our fine ESPN NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, coming in a little bit later. But apparently it's continuing to have all kinds of issues. Cleveland is playing tonight, and they take on the Spurs. So it's a bitter game. Which team is more upset with each other game, I guess.
Two teams that we wonder if they could dethrone the Golden State, can't get out of their own ways right now.
I feel like they're trying to dethrone themselves at this point. So again, the story by Adrian Wojnarowski, the Cavs apparently had a fiery team meeting in the practice facility locker room prior to Monday's practice, during which several teams challenged the legitimacy of Kevin Love's illness that led him to leave the game Saturday that they lost to Oklahoma. Here's Woj trying to set it all up.
It was a fiery scene in that Cleveland locker room before practice on Monday, I'm told. Essentially, a large part of the group accusing Kevin Love of essentially bailing on them. He left ill in the Oklahoma City game on Saturday, left the arena early, did not go to practice Sunday, still sick. And they had a team meeting. They brought in the coaching staff, the front office, and several players pushed at the coaching staff at the front office to hold Love accountable, to hear exactly why he was gone. Love did talk to the group. I'm told in the aftermath of Love explaining himself, there was a better feeling about it, but there is a culture of finger pointing that is going on in Cleveland right now. This locker room is divided. This organization is really teetering. Kobe Altman, their general manager, is very active in trade talks right now.
Wow. A couple of things there. One, you don't normally hear it's a player-only meeting. This was not a player-only meeting. This was players, management.
They brought in management, coaches,
everybody getting in. But hearing Woj say that, two things come to mind. One, okay, obviously they feel better about whatever Kevin Love had to say, but there is something fundamentally different if they were questioning Kevin Love to begin with, correct? Isn't that the bigger issue?
And I'm looking forward to talking to Woj about this.
And he'll join us later on this morning.
I have a hard time believing, and this is what happens in team meetings. I know, Mike, you've been a part of them. I certainly have been a part of them. This is what happens. What's the topic discussed of why we're so bad? And a lot of times it's an ancillary topic that comes up that ends up being this. Do we think going into this meeting that this was the headliner? That it was why Kevin Love left a game on Saturday when he was sick or left the arena and then was still sick and didn't go to practice? And to me, this sounds like the classic, you go and have a team meeting on why we're so bad right now, and a lot of topics come up, and then one comes up that you grab onto, and this seemed to be the one that everybody grabbed onto. Maybe it wasn't meant to be the main topic, but ended up being the main topic, and that's what happens in these team meetings because you open the floor up and you let everybody have their say, and sometimes some things come out that can help that you didn't think of, or that, like, where the hell did that come from, and what good is that going to do? And it gets people kind of, yelling about that, and sometimes causes more harm than good. Now, maybe this one caused more good than harm, but I have a hard time believing that this meeting was for the sole reason was, hey, let's ask Kevin Love, why, and make him, explain why he left the arena being sick Saturday.
Yeah, airing of grievances about we got to talk about the elephant in the room. Kevin, no one's really buying it, man.
Yeah.
No one's really buying it. Because you're right, it feels like one of those relationship fights where all of a sudden it's, why didn't you pick up the dishes? Oh, you're just like your father. Like something leaks out of there that you weren't ready and expecting. And in this, it seems like this is a team searching for answers, right?
Yep.
It's another one of those things where maybe in a moment, and this is what may concern you if you're a Cavs fan, is we always talk about accountability in the world of sports, and when things are going wrong, you look for everyone to step up and accept their portion of the blame. And so if everyone's finger pointing and trying to find someone to blame for what's gone wrong, and this is what you land on, something that is not even close to the source of the ills plaguing your team right now, that would concern me because we are so far away from finding the truth that we're just falling back onto the easiest thing in the world. Let's blame Kevin.
Well, why is that the easiest thing in the world? To me, that's the bigger issue. Why is it always... We should trade Kevin Love. Why is it Kevin? He's averaging almost 19 points, and he's almost basically averaging a double-double, 18.5 points, 9.4 boards per game. Why is it always Kevin Love?
I don't know. I mean, he's taken 13 shots. Isaiah now 14 shots. LeBron 18 shots. So I'm with you, Mike. This is what came out of the meeting. There better have been more. because this team is floundering right now. And if this is the headline, maybe it's because it was the most fiery thing talked about. But boy, they have a lot of ills, it seems, they need to rectify before the playoffs start. And again, this has been every January for Cleveland since LeBron's been back. So I'm not ready to sit there and go, oh, my God, they're not going to be able.
You don't tell me it doesn't feel different this year?
It feels a little different, but I'm still not ready to throw in the towel and say somebody else is going to overtake them.
Is this true? We got this? Wow. Woj really broke through with something. Apparently, we have exclusive audio of what went on in that meeting. So let's listen in.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
Obviously, that wasn't the actual audio, but we thought it was important to play.
Good thing you said that. Do you think people couldn't figure that one out?
In this day and age, when you put on Twitter, hey, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
And you get
4,000 responses. Yeah. The Germans didn't bomb Pearl Harbor. You have to literally take nothing for granted.
Again, I think in these team meetings, that's kind of what happens is you kind of start going all over the place and you start to get into areas maybe that the meeting wasn't meant to go. And if this is what we're taking out of that meeting to try and help the Cleveland Cavaliers get squared away for the end of the season and the playoffs, man, I don't know.
I just want to know what else we want to blame Kevin for now. Like, is Kevin going to have to be the Christ figure that just absorbs all of our sins?
Seems so.
Can we blame Kevin Love for the fact that Game of Thrones and BoJack Horseman aren't coming back till 2019?
Yeah.
The fact that Jay-Z and Kanye didn't make Watch the Throne 2?
Right.
The fact that we're all probably going to die in a brutal zombie apocalypse? Like, these are all things that I heard this morning, so apparently that's how comfortable we're getting.
Is it his fault that the asteroid is coming so close to Earth on Super Bowl
Man,
Sunday?
that thing.
It is, huh?
It's like...
You know what it is?
Basically going to skim.
You know what it is?
Huh.
It's Armageddon.
There you go.
Where's Bruce Willis? Send him up with everybody. Are you kidding me? Everybody mocks me because I love that movie. We're going to need him and his crew to get up there and blow that thing up.
At this point, they're going to send Kevin Love up, and they're just going to hand him the short straw. Be like, "Not Kev, that's you. Go press that button,
yeah,
fans."
That's exactly right.
You got to stay and make sure we drill down.
Uh-huh.
Then there's also Deep Impact. I love. Everything comes in twos. Like Armageddon and Deep Impact came out within like 6 months of each other.
Yeah, don't you mock Armageddon.
No, I'm not. Well, it's okay.
Yeah.
It was a little over the top, but I enjoyed it.
I have no idea what you mean.
I enjoyed it.
I love you.
Yeah.
An oil drilling team going up on an asteroid.
I just want to shake the hand of the daughter of the bravest man I've ever had the pleasure of meeting.
Meet over the top. You have no idea what you're talking about.
And that makes all the sense that you would bring that up because we'll have Adnan Virk of Cinephile Podcast
See that?
talking about
He'll fill everybody in how great that movie was.
The Oscar nominations coming out later today. Amazingly, Armageddon did not receive any at that time. So the Cavs are playing tonight. They clearly don't have a lot of confidence in one another at the moment, but we have confidence in Nationwide mortgage lender Quicken Loans, who, by the way, sponsors where they play.
Yep.
Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidentially.
Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.
Golic and Wingo with you on a Tuesday morning. Glad you're with us. We are on ESPN Radio and ESPN News on the TV side as quarterfinal matchup between Marin Cilic and Rafa Nadal continues in the Australian Open on ESPN2. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So now that we're in the sort of the lull week between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, we'll have the Pro Bowl coming up this weekend, 2:50 on ESPN and ABC Sunday in Orlando. A lot of coaching things are going to get taken care of this week. One of them was Mike Vrabel, the longtime outstanding linebacker for the Patriots. Actually started with the Steelers, then went to the Patriots and finished up with Kansas City. Was named the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. He came over from the Houston Texans, where he was the defensive coordinator for one season. Longtime linebacker coach down there. Interesting that he goes from a team in the AFC South to another team in the AFC South. And he had his introductory press conference.
Yes, he did.
Now, normally at these introductory press conferences, they're usually, bland platitudes of, we're going to turn this thing around. We've got this. He's the greatest thing ever. But in a really refreshing moment of candor, Mike Vrabel sort of stumbled into something and talked about how we get players ready for the NFL. And this is what he had to say.
The NFL has the greatest farm system in the world. We pay our farm system coaches $10 million to develop players. Nick Saban is our farm system. Urban Meyer is our farm system. So those are the types of players that they're developing. Those are the types of players that are playing in high school. That's where the game's at. I mean, Tyler's team didn't have a tight end in the school, let alone one on the roster. And so, we're going to find those types of players. But that's where the game's at. You have to try to be creative in what you're doing. You have to cause conflict. That's what these guys are doing. They're taking great athletes and they're putting them in good positions to succeed. And so we're going to do similar things. But again, we're never going to put our quarterback in harm's way.
Okay. So,
i.e., not too much read option.
Correct. Yeah, correct. But the most interesting thing to come out of that is him basically acknowledging what we all know.
Yeah.
And what everybody understands, but no one ever says it in that blank of a statement. Hey, look, the way we develop players is we pay our college coaches all this money, and we don't pay the players anything in college to become our farm system. Essentially, he's just saying we've got the greatest free system in the world to develop players.
They do, and it's the truth. They absolutely do. I mean, I while I don't think it was a revelation to anybody, it was just like, oh, yeah. That's exactly what's going on right now. So I don't think it should be a surprise. I think it's just a surprise somebody said it as blatantly as he said it.
It's a surprise someone in the system who benefits from it says it. Because usually the people in power and all this, like, you would never hear any of the college coaches treat it this way because they all have to keep up the, NCAA guys that this is about developing the whole person and all of these things. Mike Vrabel's just reminding you that they don't pay those college coaches to make you a person fit to enter the real world. They don't pay college coaches to make sure that you go to class. They pay college coaches to make sure you go out there and play damn good football.
Yeah, and which is exactly what they're supposed to get paid for, correct?
Well, yeah, no, it is, but yeah. I guess it flies in the face of what the NCAA would like you to believe because they want you to believe that these are teachers and that they have an investment in the young men.
None of that is true.
And some of them do.
You're
there
right.
are some coaches, and when you get down to the position level, and even head coaches that you hear about are definitely engaged, but for the most part, and I'm understanding of this, like those coaches don't get to keep their job because of a great academic success rate.
Right.
They get to keep their job because of wins and losses, but again, rarely do the people that benefit from this power structure actually speak this honestly about it.
Well, look, here's the situation, okay? You have basically Mike Vrabel acknowledging that the NCAA college football system is basically, to the NFL people, the farm system for how they develop players.
Right, to the NFL, yeah.
To the NFL. So let's take a look at minor league hockey or AAA, AA baseball, all the developmental leagues around the world in basketball. What's the one difference in all those other farm systems? Those players are getting paid to be part of that farm system.
But there's also another big difference is minor league teams are associated with the major league team. The NCAA isn't associated with the NFL. They're two separate entities.
They're not officially associated. They could not be more associated.
But they're not associated, Trey. They're not.
Well,
answer me this question,
okay.
Trey. The Mets, pick any major league team. Do they have a single A, double A, triple A
yes, they do.
that are part of their team? Is Alabama part of any NFL team?
Alabama's a part of a lot of NFL teams these days.
But are they? You know what I mean? They're not. They're not.
You're exactly right. I'm not disputing the fact that the NCAA and the NFL are two separate entities. But the NCAA factory is basically what the NFL counts on for them to develop their players.
I get that. That's I don't want to say an unintended consequence, but that's part of it because the colleges don't look at it that way. The colleges are trying to win a national championship. How many times have we talked about, Urban Meyer should have been coaching Tim Tebow and getting him ready for the NFL? And no, he shouldn't. He shouldn't. He should be coaching Tim Tebow to help Florida win however they're going to win. Whether it's a running quarterback, a throwing quarterback, whatever it is, it's not his job to prepare him to be a quarterback in the NFL. It's his job to win as a head coach at Florida with the people he has.
To me, the connection is immaterial in the way that you're trying to reference in this because the idea that Trey's hinting at is the idea that in those systems there's money to go around for these players.
Agreed.
The difference here is the connection with the NFL has nothing to do with that. The NCAA makes enough money in its own right on all of this in a system where you're paying these coaches $10 million a year and we see all these bonuses where there is no kickback for these guys. Where this, to me, resonates the most is just the way they view it. You are a transaction. And we talked about this when we mentioned Trae Young before, where you want this idea and this belief that, especially as a parent, when you're handing your son or daughter off to whatever coach it is, that they are being viewed and they're going to have this holistic approach that develops the whole person. And when it comes to big-time college athletics, you can't expect that anymore because there's too much money in the system. There's too much at stake for these coaches that are people, too, that have to look out for their families. And so if you're a kid now, hearing this honesty to me is just a chance to make sure, if you hadn't already, adjust your viewpoint.
Yes.
Like we hear all of these transfer rules coming out, and Josh Allen's a great example of this because Josh Allen just came out and said, I am more accurate than my percentage says. Ipso facto, my team wasn't very good. And what did we talk about the other day? What happens if some really good players at those levels decide, I want to transfer to a place where I will have weapons? Yeah, those smaller teams lose out, but you know what it does? It puts Josh Allen in the best position to succeed because at the end of the day, this is a transaction, and you are only as good as those people believe you are coming out of the farm system.
Listen, the one thing that we should all sort of get around, don't ever say there's not money. There's always plenty of money. The question is, should it go to the players? Because they are, in essence, ipso facto, heretofore, the farm system for the NFL.
They are. I get what you're saying, but they're also their own independent thing. And you're right. I guess my point is they shouldn't be. When you made the comparison of minor league, it's like they should be paid because of what they're doing, bringing players to the NFL. Let's remember, 1% of players in college go to the NFL.
You're exactly right.
If you want to say they should be paid, that's fine because the NCAA has enough money to pay them. They are their own separate entity. I'll listen to that story, but I'm just not going along with the whole they should be paid because they're a minor league to the NFL. The NCAA can handle it themselves if they wanted to.
Oh yeah, listen,
but they don't want to.
You just said it. If they wanted to,
sure. Because
the argument is, how are you going to pay him? How are you going to do this?
Right.
Well, you have to want to decide to do it.
You have to.
We put a man on the moon.
You have to want to figure it out.
We can collide antimatter, for God's sakes. Everybody has a phone that in their hand is basically a computer in your pocket and an international broadcasting system, okay? If you wanted to do this, you could do it. The question is, do people want to admit what Mike Vrabel just admitted?
Well, and to your point, Dad, about this not being connected, that's not the way Vrabel makes it sound,
I
right?
know. Yeah.
Like, the way Vrabel makes it sound is like, man, we got this gamed. Like, we have figured this out because we remember a lot of the rules about when kids can leave early and how long they can come out of college. Those are, if I'm not mistaken, NFL rules. Those are collectively bargained rules, right? That guys have to be a certain amount of time removed from high school in order to be eligible for the draft.
3 years removed from your class.
Yeah, because people always talked about that. You know, why couldn't Leonard Fournette leave after his first year? And you make the point correctly, as always, that with the Players Association, you're operating in the best interest of the whole, not a select few in this. But so this is something that the NFL has controlled because they've got a stake in the way that system works. And to an extent, because of that, they've got some control over how it works.
It's interesting. We're having this conversation about how this affects the NFL. The other side of this is how this affects the college system because what it sounded like from Mike Vrabel is he's Nick Saban works for me.
Yeah,
Urban Meyer works for me.
I think Nick would take that one, huh?
That's exactly it.
His former boss in Urban Meyer, by the way.
That's
so
right.
There's really two ramifications here.
Yeah.
What this means for the NFL and what it means, and because everybody's going to be asking all these college coaches this exact question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about what Mike Vrabel had to say?
Without question.
And that may be the next part of this discussion we'll have. Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, and a topic that's getting a lot of debate going here on the set as well as on Twitter is the Mike Vrabel comments, basically, that's saying the NFL has the greatest farm system in the world, essentially saying what we all know to be true, that the NFL gets like 90. I get it. There's the outlier that comes from somewhere like Moritz Boring, the German wide receiver who played overseas for a few years. 99.999% of the players in the NFL come through the college system. And, his line is, it's getting a lot of attention. We pay our coaches $10 million a year to develop these players. Not that we pay the players anything for this. And there's two sides of this. There's the side that we've been talking about with how this really is what the NFL does. And then there's the side of this, is this implication that all these college coaches work for the NFL. And I think people like Nick Saban and Urban Meyer and Kirby Smart all might have an issue thinking that they're there simply to provide players for the NFL. That's the other side of this.
Our coaches, right? Like, that was what he said. We pay our coaches $10 million in that farm system. Like, and that's the thing with me, I guess, is You know how this goes, and you hear a lot of opinions. I struggle to think that Mike Vrabel just concocted this original thought on his own, and that this wasn't some sort of shared premise that he had heard in other places throughout this time period. Maybe when he was with Urban Meyer, or with Bill O'Brien, or with any number of coaches along the way that he's been around as a player or a coach.
It's going to be really interesting to you. What you said last time, Trey, is when the coaches get asked this.
Because they will be asked about
Urban Meyer. Now, Urban Meyer coached Vrabel, so... Right. You know, there may be a different answer as to opposed when Nick Saban gets asked this question. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. Urban Meyer.
No, that's not Urban. I was trying to look that up.
Say he didn't coach Vrabel. No.
Vrabel was way before that.
He worked under Urban. He worked under Urban at Ohio State. That was his first coaching job post career. Was with Urban at Ohio State.
Nick Saban's the one that I can't wait to hear that. It made it sound like you work for the coaches in the NFL.
Correct.
And when you get paid more than all of them.
And the beauty is, if you're working for the NFL, they're not the ones paying you.
Yeah.
You know, so really, the NFL has it better than you can possibly imagine, because this is true, what Vrabel said, yet it costs the NFL nothing. It literally costs them nothing.
That sounds like another system.
Yeah. And the other side of
college football.
Yeah, the other side of this are the people who leave college and have a tuition
scholarship?
Debt. Thank you very much. A tuition loan to pay back.
Student loan?
Yes. Corey says, do scholarships count as getting paid? Education, housing, meals. Samuel, how much is college tuition again? Oh, that's right. The players are being paid. So you're going down that road. And as I've always said, there is some truth to that. I don't care how much everybody wants to just go roll their eyes and say it to me. Last I checked, none of, guys who are on scholarship aren't paying anything out of their paycheck. Of the 99% of people that go into the real world that are athletes, they're not paying anything out of their paycheck that pays back tuition. Right? I mean, there is something to that. You can't just completely discount that.
I don't discount that, but at the same time, that's not where the emphasis is, right? Like, he didn't say we pay him $10 million to make sure that you graduate and value your degree.
Correct.
Some of that has to be intrinsic, but at the same time, when you're told over and over again, and for the people that can't see it on ESPN News, school's number one and football's number two, which has been echoed by a lot of coaches and a lot of different programs all across the country, it gets hard when you feel like, if I prioritize academics, Josh Rosen, if I prioritize academics the way I want to make myself the best person I can be, will I be punished for it on the field? Will it be a detriment to me football-wise?
Right.
There's a coach who's a head coach in the NFL and a very successful coach in college who once said to his players, you are not here to get an education. You are here to stay eligible. So you do whatever you can. So look, you're absolutely right. They get a free scholarship, and they get that. But everybody else isn't generating billions of dollars of revenue.
Yeah,
billions of dollars of revenue.
I'm certainly willing to entertain that conversation, no doubt about it.
And we got to give props to Vrabes in his opening press conference. Maybe the straightest of all Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. And look, we'll continue this conversation. Keep putting the things in here, but understand that what Vrabel said is absolutely true.
Oh, it is true.
The question then becomes, what do you deal with? How do you process that information now that he's laid it all out there for everybody to understand? It is 100% true.
Yep.
All right, coming up, strife in the last place you expect in sports. Plus, ladies and gentlemen, I have the two greatest words that anyone can possibly say in their lifetime. Free beer.
Oh!
That'll all be explained later as we continue to work our way through a Tuesday on Golic and Wingo. They want to know now.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like I'm on top of the world.
Disclaimer, you will not be transported to the top of the world. In the unlikely event you find yourself at the Arctic Circle, seek shelter from the elements immediately to avoid frostbite and or hypothermia. Geico will not be responsible if you find yourself in a cave or crevasse with a lonely abominable snowman, who in all likelihood will force you to play games including but not limited to Go Fish, charades, Chinese checkers, or his personal favorite, Red Rover, send Yeti on over. Geico is not liable for any damages, either physical or emotional.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.